All right, then, guys. It's Jeff. Today's Monday. About an hour, 2 hours ago, we did receive news that the Boeing 737, holding about 130 people, crashed in southern China. So we'll be going through that news later on, and of course, we'll be going through some of the Russian-Ukraine updates, especially during the whole weekend, and of course, more Chinese news. Especially there was a news article about Evergrande situation as well. So that's going to be a little bit informative for us to actually go through. But anyway, without further ado, let's cover some news today. All right, so over here, the Boeing 737 carrying more than 130 people crashes in southern China. Of course, I don't think that is going to be creating a lot of fears and such. But of course, I do expect the stock prices of China Eastern, which is the airline company, to really drop because of this. Which is they're actually down 15.4% in the pre-market, and of course, like I said, a lot of times. I do not like to be someone who is very, very happy about things where, when war is happening, when someone die, when countries are in, discord in general. So it's not always good for us to really look at all these kind of things. But of course, at the same time, we are here as a finance channel, and we have to actually talk about the finance of things. All right, so the plane crashed in the southern province of Guangxi on Monday. State media, including Xinhua News Agency, reported there were no immediate reports on the number of casualties, and rescue teams have been sent to the area. Of course, right now we do not know if all of them are scattered, how many casualties, how many injured, and such. The China Eastern Airlines and Boeing didn't really respond to the request for comments as well. Similarly, I do think that Boeing should be BA, BA. Boeing is down 7% in the pre-market, 7.5% in the pre-market, simply because you would have to also take into consideration that people are also kind of worried because this could easily be a defect on the plane itself. It could be a pilot issue. It could be anything, actually. At this point, it could even be something to do with the war. No one really knows. Okay, so there is always this sort of weird worry that everyone is actually having, especially when this kind of thing actually comes out and such. All right, so over here we are going to go into the Russia-Ukraine updates. Actually, it's been a while since we actually did some of this, because usually we always get the same kind of reports, such as brands and companies getting out of Russia and things of that nature. So I think that it's kind of repetitive for me to actually go through all of them anyway. But over here, Zelensky criticized Israel's effort to remain neutral. So the Israeli lawmakers, the Ukrainian President Zelensky criticized Israel's refusal to send military aid and disparage Israel's mediation efforts. So for people who have not watched the entire, I would like to say, address to Congress by Zelensky, I think that it was a very, very powerful video. He actually said a lot about the whole no-fly zone in Ukraine. And of course, as much as I want to support Ukraine to say that, yes, they should probably just implement the no-fly zone around Ukraine, this will really slow down the process of even having anywhere near to a nuclear power plant bursting out and possibly resulting into a nuclear warfare. But we have to also take into consideration that if Ukraine were to actually ask of NATO or to ask of US or whoever it is to actually do a no-fly zone around Ukraine, and if Russia were to fly over those no-fly zones, someone have to shoot that plane down, and whoever's going to shoot that plane down is going to be technically asking for a war invitation from Russia or Putin himself, and that would kind of fast forward into a possible World War III scenario, which is why a lot of countries are kind of like, what, our hands are kind of tied. As much as we can give you guns, we can give you weapons, ammunition, trucks, vehicles, whatever it is, we can provide it for you. Every country, well, not every country, but a lot of countries are actually coming out with bills where they can do legislation bills to actually help with the whole Ukraine aid, especially for NATO side of things. So it's great that they are all helping Ukraine fight with all this, but of course Zelensky is really asking for a big ask this time with a no-fly zone. Basically is kind of giving the offensive tech over to the whoever who's going to be implementing the no-fly zone, and because of that, that's going to be very, very bizarre for them to actually go through the entire situation. And like I said, World War III is not going to be that far away if that's going to be happening. And of course, that's going to be the concern that will always be there. Okay, I want to point out that indifference kills. You can mediate between countries, but not between good and evil. Okay, of course, I do think that this is quite politically charged for people who really think on the Ukraine side of things, or people who think from Russia side of things. Not very sure. All right, missiles continue to strike Kiev. Of course, this, like I said before, okay, every single time I always I explain my trades to you guys every Friday, which are the trades that I bought across the week, and I always explain to you guys that a lot of times I do not want to be bullish on Fridays, okay? Because this kind of things happens throughout the weekend. Of course, missiles continue to strike Kiev. It's not new news, okay? Or shelling happening in Kharkiv. Those are all not new news, okay? Mariupol's getting hospitals destroyed is not new news. However, with this constant happening, okay, it's just going to bring forth more conversations between, more negotiations between all the country leaders, and be it your negotiation talk, your ceasefire talks and such. We don't know if they are all going to go towards fruition, and that's kind of where all these kind of concerns in the market kind of boil up. Okay, people are kind of worried, what if this war do not end? Okay, a lot of people at the start of this war, a lot of people think that this is going to be done in 72 hours. Okay, and Russia possibly thought that they could probably get all the way to Odessa by the fourth day or the fifth day. And now we're about 3 weeks in. No, we're a month. We are a month into this at the moment, because it started on the 24th. Today's the 21st. It's almost a month in, and they have not even reached Odessa. And there's going to be a article about Odessa later on. But anyway, so yeah, I do think that this would continue happening, and which is why I do think that Friday is not really a good day for people to really take into consideration that, I want to be extra bullish on Friday, because there's a possibility that during Friday we're going to get a peace treaty and such. And even then, right now in this current market, this is kind of like a big issue for the market in the past 4 months or so. Good news do not really give you good results. Okay, good news simply means that you have a lack of bad news. Hence, you will have no bad result. Not good result, but no bad results. And you have bad news, you get stupidly bad results. Okay, so you're not being rewarded for good news, but you are heavily punished for bad news. And that's kind of been the whole entire premise of how the market has been trading for the past 4 or 5 months. Okay, you have been seeing even from the earning calls. Okay, if you beat all estimates on your earning calls, you basically are up by like 3%, because you are expected to beat your earnings. Okay, and if you were to miss it by 5%, bam, you're down by 20% in your pre-market. Who cares? And that's kind of the whole consensus of what's actually happening in the market. Okay, and right now we're just talking about all the political side of things. Be it the things that's happening in Russia, Ukraine, whatever's happening in Belarus, whatever's happening in China. Okay, it's the same thing. Okay, if you have good news, you're not going to get rewarded for it, but if you have bad news, you're going to be heavily punished for it. And that's kind of the big issue in the market right now. And of course, it's also because we actually entered into the bull market about, I like to say, 8 months ago, 9 months ago, we entered in this bull market. And when you're in a bull market, everything just keeps on going up. And when you're exiting the bull market, it just gets worse and worse every single season as it comes along. So that's kind of how it is. All right, anyway, missiles over. Okay, Australia bans aluminum ore exports to Russia. So this is actually quite important for the commodity side of things. Okay, Australia has banned with the immediate effect of export of alumina and aluminum ores to Russia as it widens its sanctions on the country over its invasion of Ukraine. The Australian government said Sunday the ban on exports, including bauxite will limit Russia's capacity to produce aluminum, which it then exports for use in industry, including automotives, your aerospace, packaging, machinery, and constructions. Okay, so of course these are all very, very important the important part of your building of the whole country. Okay, aluminum is also critical input into armaments industry, and Australia supplies nearly 20% of Russia's alumina. Okay, so this comes back to the whole commodity supply chain collapse. Of course, like I already explained to you guys, if you guys want to go check out my video on the whole commodities, talk about it, on how this whole Russia-Ukraine situation is going to be affecting all the commodity supply chain. I actually have a video on it. I can't really remember what is it called. I think it's like, why did Russia start the war, or something along that line. So it kind of makes sense, okay, for commodities. And currently Australia is the one that's been supplying alumina and also aluminum also over to Russia, where they kind of basically make it into proper refined aluminum, where you can actually use it for your various automotive machineries and such. Okay, so Russia must pay a very high price for its brutality. It must pay that price economically. Okay. The global mining giant in 2021 exported bauxite, alumina, and aluminum worth 13.75 billion Australian dollars, equivalent to about $10 billion in the USD. Said they will work with the exporters and pick bodies affected by the ban to find new and expand existing markets. Of course, this is going to be closer to the whole metal market side of things. So it's very, very interesting for us to actually see this. Because, by what Australia is actually doing right now, is going to be causing a little bit more of a commodity pressure in the commodity market, especially with how aluminum is already being affected by this whole entire Russia-Ukraine military action to begin with from last month. Right now, it's just going to be further excavated by this whole situation of banning of alumina and aluminum ore by Australia. Okay. Next up, we got Biden to travel to Poland during a Europe trip. So for what we know, Poland is part of NATO. So it kind of makes sense for Biden to do that. I did see an article where Biden is not going to be visiting Ukraine. I'm not sure why. Of course, I think for safety reasons, it's a lot better for Biden to not really go over to Ukraine as well. Okay, so he is going to be going there on Friday during his coming trip to Europe. Jen Psaki said, blah, blah, blah. The visit will come after he departs Brussels to Belgium, where he's expected to attend a series of meetings to discuss Russia's invasion of Ukraine, including a summit meeting of the NATO. He will hold a bilateral meeting with the Polish president. Yeah, that's about it. Okay, cool. Just a short news about it. All right, let's head over to this. All right. We're going back to the pandemic news again, okay? Because Dr. Fauci came out to actually talk about the whole COVID infection actually having a possible prop-up in the near future. All right, so let's see what he actually is talking about. A likely rise in US COVID-19 cases probably won't amount to a full-scale surge or prompt a renewal of a widespread restriction, which is one of the advices by Joe Biden is talking about. The bottom line is that we likely will see an uptick in cases, as we have seen in the European countries, particularly in UK. Okay, Anthony Fauci, Biden's chief medical advisor, said on ABC's This Week on Sunday, hopefully we won't see a surge. I don't think we will. Okay, let's see now. Accounts for 30% of infection in the US. This is the BA2 subvariant of Omicron, where indoor mask and vaccine requirements have largely been rolled back. While the US Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has argued that US needs to be prepared to resume measures such as requiring masks in indoor public spaces. Right now, at this point, I don't see that. US cases, hospitalization, and death continue to decline. BA2 is about 50% more transmissible than the original strain of Omicron, but it doesn't cause more severe illness or evade immunity from vaccination or an earlier infection. Fauci and US Surgeon General Vivek Murthy urged Congress to pass a stalled package of the new COVID-19 relief. And for people who didn't catch up with the news, we did have a $1.7 trillion package that were actually helping with this whole COVID situation. And of course, with a $13.6 billion for the Ukraine aid. Okay, so this was actually passed by House and Senate quite quickly in quick succession, of course, because of the whole Ukraine's aid situation over there. The White House has sold $22.5 billion in funding, warning that it will soon have to wind down programs and can buy more therapeutic treatments. So yeah. All right, so I think this kind of actually bring back for, I think, Dr. Fauci. He's also kind of worried because of what is happening in China and UK. So both these countries they actually used to have high amounts of COVID infections at a widespread area, and of course with outstanding numbers, which is not by any way outstanding at all. But these countries actually got to dwindle down their numbers a lot, and suddenly in this few days or this few weeks, we suddenly start to see some form of a uptick in terms of the infection. Okay, even in China, you see Shenzhen, you see Beijing, some of them even going down into lockdowns again. Of course, in the US, of course, a lot of them are actually saying that it's not going to be happening in the US because it kind of do not make sense. According to what they're actually doing, they want to be forward looking into the whole economy, and they want to make sure that there won't be any more big restriction coming in. Of course, until another variant or a sub-variant that's way stronger than Delta that actually comes in. And of course, there would be a slight possibility of that actually happening. So we'll see how it goes. All right, now we are going to go back to China Evergrande and its units suspend trading in Hong Kong. All right, so finally, let's go back to China for a little bit. I think that Evergrande has been getting the eyes of a lot of investors globally. And right now, we actually have to start to go back a little bit to look at what is happening with the whole Evergrande situation. All right, so the embattled Chinese real estate developers Evergrande Group, along with its other units, suspended trading in the Hong Kong Monday morning, okay, which is earlier today. Shares of Evergrande were also halted without giving any sort of reasons. The pause come after Shenzhen-based Evergrande said in January they aim to present a preliminary restructuring proposal in the next 6 months. The firm has been at the center of a cash crisis among Chinese property developers following the Beijing's crackdown. All right, so for people who do not know, Evergrande has risen up about 3.8% in Hong Kong this year, following a 89% slump in 2021. So it's the same thing, okay? And I think that this would serve as a general rule of thumb for people who are actually investing in the market. Same thing, okay? Not financial advice, but just diversify your portfolio a little bit, okay? Just think about it this way. Evergrande in 2020 or even in 2019 probably was like a no-brainer sort of move, okay? Everyone had full faith that Evergrande is not going to be a problem, and it's smart for you to actually invest into Evergrande. Just put all your eggs into one basket. Just put it into Evergrande because it's going to be giving millions of houses in China, okay? And for rental income, it's going to be great. Just buy more houses via Evergrande, okay? It makes sense at that time. But of course, you have to also take into consideration there are times where crises can happen, okay? Be it a recession happening, be it Evergrande situation happening, be it a war happening, okay? And a lot of time before 2020, we do not think that these are variables that we have to take into account. A pandemic, a war, a whole property meltdown happening. But look at us now in 2022. A pandemic, a war, properties meltdown, even Federal Reserve not doing that well. Like, come on. And that's why I do think that, if you are really investing, if you are trying to be in the market, just diversify, okay? I don't want to say that this is financial advice, but let's be honest here, okay? Diversification is so important. Of course, there is a possibility that you can go 100%, 120% plus margin all the way into one stock, and that stock just doubles, triples, 10 times, 100 times. It's possible, okay? It's possible. But at the same time, as much potential that you can go 10 times, 100 times, 1,000 times, you can also go to zero. So, of course, I think that, Evergrande situation, at the start, people did not really think that Evergrande is going to be a double, 3x, 10x by the next year kind of stock or that kind of company. But of course, they did see the potential of the company because it's considered a conglomerate, a company where they are actually controlling a lot of houses, they're building houses, they're doing rental and such. It makes sense for you to really get into Evergrande. And who knew that in 2021 alone, Evergrande can go down all the way to 89% downwards. Okay, a drop of 89%, basically leaving the price of the company at 11%. That's painful. That's very, very painful. Okay, so I hope that this Evergrande situation has taught us a lot about how the market is so volatile. Okay, something interesting for us to really look into. All right, so the Ukraine update again. Okay, the Merkel rejects surrender demand. Kiev mall hit. Same thing as before. It's just that this is on Bloomberg instead of Wall Street Journal. Kiev getting hit at this point is already like an everyday news. Of course, like I said before, I do not want to really be insensitive to the people who are living in Kiev. I'm happy for the 2 million people who are getting out of Ukraine as we speak. But at the same time, the market is not going to be very, very happy about this. And of course, over time, Ukraine is going to get sabotage, destroyed over time with all the missiles attack, the artillery attacks and such. It's not going to be good. Okay, Merkel is going to be rejecting the surrender demand by Russia as well. So honestly speaking, we're actually looking from here from a big picture. Putin don't really look like he's gonna be surrendering. And I've said this on multiple occasions. Okay, I don't want to be like this broken recording track. I've said it again and again. I just do not think that Ukraine. I do not think that Putin is gonna come out and just be like, you know what, we're done. Okay, be it a ceasefire or not. Like as long as you do not, as long as Ukraine do not join the NATO, we are gonna leave. And I don't think that's gonna happen. So I do not see this concluding very, very soon. And by very, very soon, I do mean in this couple of weeks. But I think in maybe a month or 2 months, maybe, we might be able to see some form of a conclusion. But of course, I think nothing's for sure. As much as I would like to disprove people who say that this war is going to last 72 hours, I do not want to be disproved, saying that this war is going to last 3 years when I think that this war is going to last 3 months. Okay, so... All right, let's get to CNBC because I think that there's something interesting there. All right, so Warren Buffett, let me just refresh this because there's new information. Warren Buffett, Berkshire Hathaway, agrees to buy insurance company Allstate for $11.6 billion. Okay, so earlier I checked Allstate. Allstate is up 27% in the pre-market, which makes a lot of sense because right now what Berkshire Hathaway is doing, they're buying Allstate at a 27% premium, which kind of just matched perfectly over at the price point right now. Because over here, okay, I can't really show you the screen. So yeah, it represents a multiple of 1.26 times, aka 26% premium. But I did the calculation myself is 27% anyway. So as well as a 16% premium to Allstate's average stock price in the past 30 days. All right, so it makes sense for Warren Buffett to kind of be starting to make moves. I think this is the second big move that Warren Buffett has made in the past 2 months. The previous one was with Occidental Petroleum. Yes, correct. Yes, and then so agreed to buy the insurance company Allstate for $11.6 billion. The conglomerate said they represents a multiple, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Allstate shares rallied more than 50% in the pre-market. Through its subsidiary, Allstate is involved in a number of different insurance business, including wholesale, specialty, property, casualty, and reinsurance. So, of course, something like this would most likely be prompting up all the possible insurance sector, okay, such as your Lemonade, which is also a purely online insurance business, alongside with your Root, alongside with Prudential, alongside with Hippo Insurance as well. So I do follow a lot of insurance company in terms of the stock prices as well, because I do think that insurance as a whole is a good business model. Okay, they are selling something with very, very low margins, basically zero margins. It makes a lot of sense. Okay, it's a good business. Everyone needs to get insurance. Okay, it's kind of like a government sort of thing. Okay, but yeah. Okay, Berkshire will be the perfect permanent home for Allstate, a company that I have closely observed for 60 years. Who previously led Berkshire owner General RE hailed the deal as a terrific transaction for Allstate's owner, business, customer, and employees. The value of this transaction reflects the quality of our franchises and is the product of the hard work, persistence, and the determination of Allstate's team over decades. Yeah, pretty cool. I'm very happy that they actually did this. I just thought that usually what we actually see is that when companies start to actually go out to do big acquisitions such as Berkshire Hathaway, clearly one of the biggest company out there, doing acquisition deals. It simply means that we are starting to see a little bit of a reversal in the market. Okay, it's very good for us to really see this kind of thing. We want to see more acquisition deals, okay, or cash deals like this. It's very important for us to really have more of such motion for the economy to kind of just move on a little bit. Okay. Okay, let's look at this. More than 90% of Ukrainians believe their country will win the war. Zelensky warns of World War III. All right, the United Nations says 10 million Ukrainians have fled their homes, including those who have left the country and others who remain within the borders. Zelensky made a direct appeal to Moscow and the people of Russia, claiming 14,000 Russian soldiers have been killed since the invasion began. Zelensky also warned of the dire consequences if ongoing ceasefire talks with Russia fail. Of course, right now, we have to also take into consideration of Zelensky's current position. Okay, he definitely wants a ceasefire, and I do think that the whole world wants a ceasefire as well. We do not want to see innocent life getting lost over something like a political debate. And of course, you know, with I did read something about the whole Merkel's. Some of them are getting sent to Russia instead, which is kind of weird. I do not know how that's going to be working out. So, according to Mariupol's city council, Russian bombs fell on an art school in the city where about 400 residents were in hiding. Shares of Russia's Rusal dive after aluminum ban. Hong Kong listed shares of Rusal, a Russian aluminum producer, dropped by as much as 8.9% on Monday morning. Monday, following an announcement by the Australian government that it would ban exports of alumina to Russia. So yeah. All right. Now, for the final news, we do have Xi Jinping can't stomach doing something that might make Putin look bad, says political analysts. So we do need to kind of uncover this a little bit more, because if you guys do remember on my trades, or you guys can just kind of go back to my trades where I was actually explaining to you guys that I was shorting Chinese stocks via a long put. Okay. I kind of explained my positions and the reason why I take on those positions as well. I took it on Thursday and Friday, where I bought long puts on Futu and I bought long puts on Tencent Music. Okay, I do think that these are pretty good moves on my part, simply because I do think that right now Chinese companies as a whole is a huge question mark. Okay, we do not know what's going to be happening with China. Okay, especially in this news. Okay, let's just go through this news a little bit before I actually give you guys some of my own opinions-driven sort of things. China does not want to take a position on Ukraine that would undermine Russia. Okay, it doesn't appear that Beijing has provided any military assistance or violated the economic sanctions on Russia, but they have not said no. And I think what the US is trying to do is make sure that that doesn't happen, and they just can't get a yes out of the Chinese or any kind of promise. Joe Biden spoke to Xi Jinping for nearly 2 hours on Friday about Russian invasion of Ukraine. He warned China of a global backlash and consequences if Beijing helped Russia in its war on Ukraine. I think that means that we're going to continue to see China in an argument that isn't really necessary for them to have, except for the fact that Xi Jinping just simply can't stomach doing something that might make Putin look bad. On Saturday, China state media reported that Chinese state councillor and foreign minister Wang Yi said China is on the right side of history with regard on the Ukraine crisis, and time will prove it. We have always stood for maintaining peace and opposing war. And then, of course, we will never accept any external coercion or pressure, and we will also oppose any groundless accusation or suspicion targeted against China. Of course, afterwards, Kennedy kind of just said, Foreign Minister Wang Yi said that Chinese policy is as clear as it could be. It's as clear as muddy water is what it is. What they really need to do is take a firm position on it. Of course, so right here, you can tell that there's two varying opposition of how their own position for this entire war is currently at. Of course, I do think that I'm kind of leaning towards the US side of things because, like I said before, I think that US, as much as they are not the best people, they are very transparent with a lot of their information that they do get. And for China, they like to hide a lot of things, okay? And honestly speaking, right now, China is also really kind of standing on Russia's side to begin with. let's talk about pre-war first. Okay, China has been standing at Russia's side to begin with, and then of course slowly we start to see China starting moving to the middle, because China kind of do not want to really get into the whole bedazzle between Russia and Ukraine. But of course, for US, they have always been very, very adamant with their position, saying that they are going to be behind Ukraine all the way, no matter what, at the start of the war, all the way to now. Okay, to I don't know, month one of the war. I don't know. Okay, it can make sense. Okay, it kind of makes sense that US is kind of wanting to pressure China to be like, just make a stand. Okay, are you with Ukraine or are you with Russia? And China is just basically saying, we are for peace. Okay, whatever is the peaceful or the diplomatic way to go about, we will side on that. So it kind of makes sense. Okay, I like I said, I don't want to discredit both sides. I just can see it from both point of view, and because I can see it from both point of view, it kind of makes me a little bit sketch, especially on China's side of things. Because like I said before, we do not know what China is thinking about, and China is not going to be transparent with the information that they have either. Okay, they are going to be withholding a lot of information from the general public, and because of that, it's very hard for us to actually make some form of a intelligent guess on what China is about to do, which is why I'm very, very cautious. I'm very, very apprehensive about what kind of moves I'm going to be doing with China. Okay, which is why Chinese stocks in general, I'm going to be doing long puts in general. Okay, for now, I'm going to be doing long puts, and the reason is because it just makes sense for me to do long puts, because at the end of the day, if it doesn't work out and China turns out to be right, it simply means that the war is going to be over. And if the war is going to be over, basically longing puts on China is my hedging mechanism on this entire situation. So me paying premium on long puts on Chinese stocks, aka being bearish on them, okay, it simply means that in the case where China basically says that they are going to be standing on Russia's side, Chinese companies are going to tank horribly. And let's not forget, these are Chinese companies who are listed in the US. Okay, do you get my drift here? Because if Chinese company listed in the US and China decided to stand on Russia's side of things, do you really think that US is not going to just come and just be like, all right, you know what, we're going to be delisting all of you guys? And just this simple announcement is going to completely just destroy the entire Chinese market who are currently listed in the US, the NYSE, the Nasdaq, and such. Okay, this is enough to destroy those companies. And of course, if that were to happen, I get 10%, 20%, 100%, 200%, I don't know. Okay, and this premium is not it's not a big part of my portfolio. Okay, this current position is about, say, 4% of my current portfolio. Okay, I'm not doing a huge hedge against China at the moment. I'm using it as a hedging mechanism. Okay, and let's just say in the second scenario where it turns out where China is just up for peace. Okay, if both Ukraine and Russia can somehow reach an agreement where they are willing to do a ceasefire policy and they are gonna just go through all the things, like not joining NATO, getting off EU and whatever it is. Okay, they can just go through a whole list and then a ceasefire happen. China turns out to be that person who kind of just orchestrated the entire peace treaty. Good for China. Okay, China goes up. I sell my puts for a loss, of course, but when I sell for a loss, all my other stocks are gonna go up because the whole uncertainty of a war is completely gone. So yeah, that's kind of my take on things. Okay, which is why I think that it kind of makes sense for me to long a put on China. Okay, of course, again, okay, this is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. Whatever I say is just my opinion. So do not follow what I do. Okay, you can listen to what I say because I'm just talking to you from my own portfolio point of view. I don't know about your portfolio, so I don't know if you are capable of doing so or if you really think you should do so as either. So yeah, by the way, that's all I have for today's news. A little bit longer than expected, but it's a Monday. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.